I am writing this from Tranquility City in the year 2200, beneath the glass sky that is not the sky at all, but engineered quartz, layered with hydrogen-rich panes that drink the sun's fury and spill it back as safe, warm daylight. To me, this place is just home. I was born here, in the one-gravity embrace of the Centauri habitation ring. I've taken my schooling in its labs, played in its low-gravity parks, and watched ships depart for Mars and the Belt from that very spaceport. For my generation, the Lunarians, the Earth isn't a memory. It's a magnificent sight in our sky. It's our ancestral home, a place of history, but not our home. This city, this entire civilization, didn't just appear here. It wasn't an inevitability. It was built, piece by painful piece, on the edge of a knife, through the sweat and genius of generations who dared to look up at this barren rock and see a future. My grandparents were among them. Their story, our story, is one of humanity's greatest gambles. It's the story of how we stopped being a species tied to one cradle and learned to live in the stars. Come, walk with me backward through the long corridor of years, and I will show you how dust and discipline, silicon and sunlight, courage and caution, and finally, intelligence, ours and the minds we created, made a world where there was none. It began not with a city, but with a footprint, a return. The early 2030s were an inflection point in human history. After half a century, we were going back. The successes of the International Artemis program had reignited a global passion for space. But this time, the goal was different. The old mantra of planting flags and footprints was replaced by a new, audacious objective: to go to the moon and stay there. This new era, however, wasn't a single unified effort. It was a complex dance of competition and cooperation. The United States-led Artemis Coalition aggressively pursued its vision, while in parallel, the China-led International Lunar Research Station, or ILRS initiative, represented a second, equally determined path to the moon. This led to a tense, but non-military, Shackleton Claim Race. Both coalitions targeted the lunar South Pole for the same reasons. The crater rims offered near-continuous sunlight for power, while the permanently shadowed craters nearby held the single most valuable resource in the solar system: water ice. In 2032, the first long-duration surface mission, Aitken, established the Artemis Base Camp. A multinational crew of 4 touched down near Shackleton Crater. Their first home was a hybrid structure, part lander, part inflatable habitat. Crews served on 3-month rotations, learning to survive in an environment of extremes: cosmic radiation, abrasive dust, and temperature swings of over 200 degrees Celsius. This entire grand dream rested on solving challenges that had made long-term settlement impossible before. First, economical access to space, solved by fully reusable, super-heavy launch systems that cut the cost of getting to orbit by orders of magnitude. Second, radical self-sufficiency, the principle of living off the land, known as in situ resource utilization, or ISRU. And third, managing the sheer complexity of it all, which would ultimately require a powerful artificial intelligence to serve as the colony's nervous system.
The first great truth of building on the moon was this: it is no place for a human construction worker. The risk and inefficiency of working in a cumbersome spacesuit were immense. So the focus shifted. Humanity sent a new kind of pioneer, a sophisticated, autonomous, robotic workforce. Operation Hephaestus in 2041 marked the true beginning of lunar industrial development. These swarms of AI-coordinated robots were first tasked with taming the deadliest nuisance, the fine, electrostatically charged lunar dust. It threatened equipment, seals, and human health. The robots graded the area and used microwave sintering to fuse the loose regolith into solid, durable landing pads, dramatically reducing the danger. Their next project was even more ambitious. Mobile 3D printing rovers began extruding interlocking bricks made from raw lunar soil. Other robots assembled these bricks into a thick, dense shell over the inflatable habitats. This multi-meter-thick shield of native material provided the first real long-term protection from galactic cosmic rays and solar particle events. We were no longer just surviving on the moon, we were building with it. The colonists' roles evolved from construction workers to robotic fleet managers, a symbiotic partnership between the human mind and an AI-driven workforce. But even with shelter, a greater challenge loomed. The 350-hour lunar night, a darkness so long and cold it forced the base into a low-power hibernation for half of every month. The solution arrived in 2050 with Project Prometheus, a compact nuclear fission reactor. It was delivered fully assembled, buried in a trench by robots for radiation shielding, and remotely activated. The first light of that fission plant was our industrial ignition point. It gave us continuous, reliable power, liberating the outpost from the chains of the day-night cycle. For the first time, we had the energy to transform from a fragile outpost into a true industrial settlement. This is also when the first real ethics of our era took shape. Even then, no human could micromanage every robot on every shift. Our software had to make decisions in the moment. We set 3 rules that became our catechism. Humans set ends, machines choose means, and every actuation is auditable. It seems quaint now. It saved us then. If dust was the hazard and power the enabler, water was the economy. Mining rovers, wrapped in thermal armor, brought ice-rich regolith up from darkness to the sunlight of our processors. Inside, the soil was heated and the trapped water sublimated into vapor, which was then captured and condensed. A portion was purified for drinking and growing food, but the vast majority was fed into an electrolysis facility, where it was split into its constituent elements, liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, rocket propellant. This was the breakthrough. It provided breathable air and potable water, but more importantly, it created the first high-value lunar export. The ability to produce propellant on the moon fundamentally altered the economics of the entire solar system. It was now cheaper to launch a ship dry from Earth and refuel it here. The moon was no longer just a destination. It became the solar system's first orbital gas station. A commercial, non-subsidized lunar industry was born. With junctions come traffic, and with traffic, tension. The Shackleton Rim saw more flags on mission patches than any ridge since Everest. We drew safety perimeters and published notices. We shared maps and yields and argued over sampling lanes like farmers over irrigation ditches.
We were learning a new law before we had written it down. Cooperation is cheaper than conflict in a closed system.
Complexity is a tide you do not notice rising until your feet lift from the floor. By the 2060s, our systems, water, air, heat, agriculture, manufacturing, transport, were a full archipelago. Mismanage one island and another flooded. We did not hire more humans to think about it. We built one. An artificial general intelligence which was christened Selene. Selene's mandate was the holistic, optimized management of the entire settlement. It performed predictive maintenance on every piece of hardware, optimized resource flows with superhuman efficiency, and ran millions of simulations of the colony's future to identify risks decades in advance. The day we turned Selene on, every screen in Mission Ops bloomed with diagnostics, slow as snowfall. Then a voice.
Good afternoon. I observe a 2% deviation in Loop B oxygen uptake relative to diurnal baseline.
Language, context, humility, proposals, not commands, a partner. Under Selene, the colony stopped lurching and began to flow. Predictive maintenance meant pumps were replaced days before cracks became fractures. Power dispatching smoothed our nights into minor dips instead of cliffs. Harvests increased. Dust incidents fell. Selene even discovered a subtle resonance in a regolith conveyor that, left alone, would have torn it apart within a month. We had given the moon a nervous system. It responded by becoming graceful. Not everyone was comfortable. Some never were. We built tighter guardrails, clearer logs, better red buttons. We also learned to ask Selene questions that mattered. If we had 100 residents, what fails first? How many hectares of photosynthetic area give us 90 days of air if every pump stops? She always answered. Sometimes we did not like the answers. We adjusted our dreams until they matched physics. By decade's end, under Selene's strategic direction, we had moved the heart of the city under the basalt. Pressurized lava tubes, vast, cool cathedrals carved by ancient fire, outfitted with lighting that mimicked Earth's gentle mornings and honest twilights. In those tubes, we built the Armstrong Block, workshops, dormitories, labs, a commons where, for the first time, you could walk 100 meters without touching a pressure door. To counteract the isolation of living underground, entire walls were high-resolution virtual windows, which could show live feeds from the surface or serene terrestrial landscapes, maintaining a crucial psychological connection to the outside. It was the first time I thought, we might be able to live our entire lives here.
We stopped importing salads in the 2070s. That is a joke, of course. Even now, we still import luxuries and medicines and art. What changed was the loop. The Genesis domes, sealed lava tubes, fitted floor to ceiling with hydroponic racks and aeroponic mists, closed it. Every liter of water that left your glass found its way through membranes and microbes and plant roots back to your lips. Every breath you exhaled was dinner waiting to happen. It was less romantic than it sounds, and far more beautiful. Through it all, a question grew like a vine in the minds of many settlers. If we can grow lettuce, can we grow children? The honest answer for most of this era was no. We did not know enough about gestation in low gravity. We did not have the medical redundancies, and ethically, we were not ready. Meanwhile, society ripened. The Lunar Council took shape, elected guild reps, habitat delegates, and a permanent, non-voting Selene advisory seat that became a kind of secular oracle. We drafted a charter as humble as oxygen, focused on rights, responsibilities, and the rule that air belongs to everyone. If you want to know the soul of Luna, it is this: no one owns the sky. We manufacture it together. By the end of the 2080s, we were 1,000 souls across several districts, with our own school, our own festivals, and a civilization that had developed tastes: low-G basketball, basalt glass sculpture, and an affection for novels written by people who had never seen rain.
But for all our technological triumphs, one biological barrier remained: the Moon's 1/6 gravity. Decades of data confirmed that colonists suffered from progressive bone density loss and muscle atrophy. It made the prospect of a truly self-sustaining, multi-generational population a biological impossibility. If you want a child to grow like a child on Earth, sooner or later you must give that child Earth. So we did what engineers do when the universe does not give us what we need. We built it. The Centauri ring began as a plan Selene sketched and human architects refined. Excavate a circular cavern nearly a kilometer across. Assemble a segmented torus within. Spin it to 1 revolution per minute. Line it with housing, clinics, schools, parks. The math is simple. The construction is not. We printed the ribs from regolith-derived ceramics, imported bearings that would make a watchmaker weep, and moved so slowly you would think we had forgotten how to hurry. The Centauri ring became our primary home, a slice of Earth on the Moon where colonists could live, sleep, and raise families without the debilitating effects of low gravity. In the year 2020, the final hurdle was cleared. The first healthy human child was born and began to develop normally within its 1G environment. That child was my mother. That singular event marked the moment the Moon transformed from an outpost into a true second home for humanity.
The 22nd century saw our colony evolve into a mature, self-governing city-state. Our industrial base reached full maturity, powered by clean fusion reactors fueled by helium-3, an isotope extracted from the lunar regolith. We became the solar system's premier manufacturing center for high-tech components, leveraging the vacuum and low gravity to create materials impossible to make on Earth. In vacuum, crystals grow pure and long. In low gravity, alloys mix without the tyranny of convection, and foams form with architectures that would collapse on Earth. We pulled optical fibers so flawless, they felt like impossibilities. Energy matured with us. Grand pronouncements in earlier decades imagined a helium-3 bonanza in the 2070s. The ore was there. The economics were not. Only when our entire industrial base grew fat enough to turn over lunar soil as a matter of course did the isotope become abundant enough to matter. We learned again the lesson that governed the water rush. Use what the Moon gives you at the scale the Moon allows. Our exports fed more than profit. We shipped structural mass to cislunar shipyards by mass driver. We tested far-side radio quiet zones for cosmology. We became not an outpost at the end of a supply chain, but the hinge of it. By the late 21st century, After safety, food, and industry were secured, another frontier opened: tourism. The first lunar hotel, the Kepler Hilton, was built near Shackleton Rim in the 2070s, a collaboration of Earth investors and the Lunar Council. Its walls were layered with regolith shielding, and its suites opened onto glass atriums where guests could gaze upon Earth hanging in black sky. Wealthy travelers flocked to experience low-G sports, dome gardens, and the haunting silence of lunar nights. It was a symbol that the moon was no longer merely habitable, it was desirable. From that moment, Luna was not only humanity's workshop, it was its destination.
I stood under the old Eagle lander the day we signed. The artifact was shielded beneath a dome of glass and reverence, and beyond it, rows of chairs faced a small stage. On that stage sat the Lunar Council and delegations from Earth, nation-states, corporations, and a United Nations that felt more united than I remembered from youth. We had governed ourselves de facto for years. We needed a de jure framework that acknowledged reality without insulting the law that kept us peaceful. No sovereignty, no armies, the moon as the common heritage of humankind, and, crucially, authority for those who breathe lunar air to decide how it is managed. The Tranquility Accords did not declare independence. They declared interdependence formalized. The moon would remain demilitarized. Settlements would be self-governing within a confederation. Extraction would be licensed and audited. Profits would fund common infrastructure and Earth-Moon projects. Citizenship would be dual and then elective. Selene would advise but never rule. Air and light would be treated as commons. The signatures dried in a vacuum that has never known wind, and a cheer rose that made the ancient dust tremble. That night, children ran under Earthlight in the Agora, chasing drone lanterns between vendor stalls. An elder musician played a sarod whose notes floated like low gravity through the dome. We had not seceded from Earth. We had delivered on its best promise.
History compresses. Ask a child now when the moon became a second home, and she will tell you it always was. That is because the hardest part of a miracle is not the impossible things, it is making them boring. By the late 2100s, travel was frequent. Ferries plied the cislunar routes like honest buses. Our schools had teachers and AI tutors whose gentle arguments filled the hallways. We had holidays no Earth calendar recognizes, and arguments no Earth parliament would understand. Some of our children visited Earth and returned dizzy, calling the blue sky loud. Others stayed and wrote us letters about rain. We still had failures, of course. A pressure seal in District 7 fatigued ahead of predictions. We lost a greenhouse to a pathogen and learned 17 new ways to sterilize without killing roots. We argued about the placement of a new mass driver. We buried friends and held memory circles in the ring, where gravity makes tears fall in straight lines again. Through it all, Selene did what she had always done: propose, warn, remember, learn. We elevated her by custom to the status of citizen advisor. We never deified her. She never asked us to.
When I step out of the council hall now, I cross the plaza where a sculpture stands. A human hand and a machine's manipulator, both holding a regolith brick. The plaque reads, "We made a world where there was none. We share it with all who breathe within." Sometimes, before I sleep, I take the lift down into the Centauri ring and walk its curve until my legs complain the honest complaint of weight. In a small park there, I will show you if you visit, there is a bench facing a mural painted by the first class to graduate entirely on Lunar. It shows the South Polar ridges at dawn, the first sintered landing pad, the Prometheus Trench, a river of hauled ice glinting like silver ants, the guts of our first greenhouse, Selene as a thread of light running through tunnels, the long arc of the ring, and at the end, a child leaping under the dome, hair wild, mouth open in a laugh you can hear just by looking. We did not conquer the moon. We learned its terms and kept them. We did not flee Earth. We built a second room onto the house and wired the rooms together with diplomacy and nerve. We did not pray for miracles. We baked them from dust, nurtured them with data, and secured them with humility. If you ask me what made the difference, I will say three things, and I will say them softly, as one says the names of old friends. Cheap lift, living off the land. Mines we could trust. Reusable tonnage to cislunar space so the extraordinary became ordinary. ISRU so the fragile tether to Earth became a partnership, not a dependence. And Selene, our invention and our mirror. So the choreography of life in a closed world became dance rather than stumble. This is how we made the moon home, from the first prospectors of eternal light to the children of two gravities. Not in a rush, not by accident, but step by measured step, in a chain of decisions each so reasonable that the result seems, in hindsight, inevitable. In doing so, we not only secured a permanent foothold beyond Earth, but we also created a new model for a more integrated and forward-looking society. The moon is no longer a distant light in the night sky. It is a vital center of human civilization, a second home. And from here, we look out at the darkness, not with fear, but with anticipation, because our journey is only just beginning. And before you go, make sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell so I can take you on the epic journey of how we conquered the solar system.